Tonight, Phase 3 begins. What's up guys, my name is Ryan, welcome to my channel if you are new here. So tonight, as I just said, we begin Phase 3 of our MCU rewatch and review series, and of course, that kicks off with what I believe, I don't think I've met a single person who doesn't agree that this is one of the MCU's best films, and of course, Phase 3 begins with Captain America Civil War. And from here on out, I have the good covers for all my MCU movies. I don't know why they came out with those boring, bland, re-release covers for all the Marvel movies with just like one character with a bland tan background behind it. I don't know why they did that. These covers are clearly so much better. They're so beautiful. There's so much going on. I don't know why they didn't just keep these covers. That's just baffling to me. I mean, look at how much better this is. Gah! But my hatred for certain Blu-ray movie covers aside, you know the drill, just gonna watch the film, then get my thoughts afterwards, so I'll see y'all afterward. Whew. Okay guys, I just finished Avengers 2.5, so let's get started talking about it, and spoiler alert, by the way. Okay, every time I finish Civil War, I come out of it going, wow. This is most certainly one of the best films the MCU has to offer. It is so well made. It is such a masterpiece. There's so much to discuss with this film. There's so many themes and messages and complexities and ideas that are explored in this film that I just don't think I can tackle it all in one video. So this is definitely a film that I will continue to explore and talk about on this channel. There's so much to pull out of this film and I don't want to keep y'all here forever. I just can't discuss and talk about everything and dive deep into it just after, like right after watching the film. I really need to sit and think about it and maybe watch the film a few more times. So I'm just gonna kind of hit on the main points of why I love this movie, but like I said, this is definitely a film that I will continuously cover on my channel. First thing you gotta talk about, the Russo brothers, fantastic directors, the best in the MCU. All four of their films are almost perfect films. This film, once again, just has everything you love about the MCU, and the Russo brothers managed to balance all of it perfectly. You feel the weight and the seriousness of the plot and the situation and the conflict, but it also has the humor and the levity and the fun to it. It never feels super serious and dark, but it also doesn't feel like it's not taking it seriously and it's just a big jokey film like a lot of future MCU films had that problem. No, it balances everything perfectly. It knows the right time to insert a joke to make it a bit more humorous and lighthearted, and it knows when to double down on the seriousness of the situation and explore the complexity of the conflict. Everything in this film is just done so well. The action, the humor, the story, the characters. Like with Age of Ultron, this is just such an important and pivotal film in the MCU, and it does a great job of building on what came before, but also setting up what's to come in the future of the MCU. Of course, obviously Infinity War and Endgame, but it sets up, like, almost all of Phase 3. This is the first film of Phase 3, and you know, Black Panther and Spider-Man are introduced, and it kind of sets up those characters for their films, which I'm so excited to watch and review. It's continuing all these characters' storylines, and it has a lot of characters in it, and it never feels overstuffed or overcrowded or like someone's just kind of shoehorned or stuffed and forced in there. No, everyone here feels like they are naturally there, and like it's so fluent and just feels natural and organic that everyone's here, that the characters that are in this film are in this film. And I love how they continue to explore and dive into all these characters and their complexities and their storylines and their character development, and that continues on in the future of the MCU, as we will see. It does a great job on building on what these characters have endured and gone through and how they've developed so far, and developing them further in this film and in future MCU films. And the conflict and main plot of this film feels like the natural progression of the MCU and where it's at, and what, in light of what has happened up to this point, this feels like the natural progression of the story of this universe and these characters. I love how this film tackles something that a lot of superhero content like kind of brushes off or doesn't really talk about and dive into, and that's the destruction heroes leave behind when they are trying to save the world, and like these innocent bystanders getting hurt, and like, are heroes a good or bad thing for the world? You know, in Age of Ultron, Tony created a dangerous artificial intelligence that gained sentience and tried to destroy the world, and a lot of lives were lost in Age of Ultron, and now they want to, the General Ross, or Secretary Ross, all these countries signed the Sokovia Accords, want the Avengers to sign, and so the Avengers will be subject to the government and be a government team and not operate on their own, so they can keep the Avengers in check. And it makes sense that this is the story that would take place, that this is the plot of the film. And it's so interesting, and I love how the Russo brothers are so good at just diving into the complexities of these characters, and showing us all their different viewpoints and why they don't want to sign the Accords, why they do want to sign the Accords. And it's so interesting with Captain America and Iron Man especially, because I watched some interview clips from the Russo brothers and Kevin Feige about this film, and how they really wanted to show how, like, Captain America and Iron Man have kind of grown to the opposite viewpoints, and it's so interesting. Captain America in the beginning, he's loyal to the government and institutions, but, over the course of the MCU, especially Winter Soldier, he, finds that he can't always trust those institutions, and they can become corrupt and evil, and you can't always trust them. And Iron Man, Tony Stark, who, has said, I'm not gonna give the government my armor, I'm gonna use it how I want to use it, it is mine, I'm not gonna let the government control me and tell me what to do. And now in this film, he has regrets from creating Ultron and the destruction that he caused. And I love that scene where he's talking to that mother who shows her son and tells him that he was lost in Sokovia, and you can see it in his eyes and how that wrecks him, and it's kind of like a punch to the gut to him, and it kind of drives his actions and influences them throughout this whole film, and why he's for the Accords and wanting to sign them, because he thinks he needs more accountability so that Ultron doesn't happen again. Now he wants to be submitted to the government, but Captain America's like, what if the government becomes corrupt and they don't send us somewhere where we need to go, where there's people in danger and we could help? What if they don't send us? What if it becomes a corrupt institution? They just do such a great job of diving into these characters and their viewpoints and helping us understand where they're coming from, and it feels like how they would naturally think about and approach this situation. This is just such a well put together story, especially when you bring in Daniel Brühl as our villain, Zemo, a famous Avengers and Captain America villain, who just has planned trying to divide the Avengers throughout the film, and what he does with Bucky. There's just so much going on in this film, and like I said, so many ideas and themes explored in this film, and it's all intertwined so well. And it never feels like there's too much going on. It all feels natural, and just the pacing and the timing, everything about this film is almost perfect. I do want to talk about Zemo for a minute. Daniel Brühl does such a great job as Zemo. I like how they kind of make his backstory that he lost his family, his wife and his son, in Sokovia when the Avengers, caused that city to fall down when Ultron put it in the sky. And now he wants revenge, and he wants to divide the Avengers, which he manages to do in the film. He succeeds in his goal, and that's why he's such a great villain, because he has a great relatable backstory. You understand where he's coming from, and he succeeds in what he's doing, or what he set out to do. I love when he's captured at the end and he's in the raft, and Everett Ross talks to him and he's like, how does it feel to have your plan fail so spectacularly? And then he goes, did it? And it didn't. He succeeded in tearing the Avengers apart and dividing them and causing them to fall. I love how he talks about when Captain America and Iron Man are fighting in the end, and Black Panther walks up to him. Zemo is telling him his backstory and why he did all this, because he lost his wife and his son. He's like, I knew that I couldn't destroy the Avengers, men more powerful than me have tried, but I knew if I could get them to destroy each other. And then Black Panther's talking about how Zemo's consumed by vengeance, and he's seen what it's done to the Avengers, and how, Zemo kills King T'Chaka, T'Challa's Black Panther's father in the film, and at first he wants to kill the killer, find the killer, and kill them, and get vengeance, but he sees how vengeance has consumed the characters in this film, and he doesn't want to go down that road, so in the end, he decides not to kill Zemo, but just bring him in and imprison him. And it's so sad at the end when Captain America and Iron Man are fighting, and, that awesome airport fight scene with all the characters is just one of the best fight scenes, I think one of my favorite fight scenes I've ever seen in a movie. Just fan service done right, and then when, before the fight begins, how, Cap is trying to tell Tony that, hey, Zemo is kind of like, he framed Bucky for killing King T'Chaka. He's trying to divide us. There's something else going on here, and he's not listening to him. But after the fight, he finds evidence that Cap is right, and he goes to where Cap and Bucky are, and he's like, hey, you're right, there's something else going on here. And then Zemo shows them how that footage of Bucky when he was under Hydra's mind control as the Winter Soldier, killing Tony's parents, and then he starts trying to kill Bucky, and Cap tries to stop him, and they get into this fight, and it's just so tragic seeing these friends fight each other and come apart. But it feels natural and like that this would organically, realistically happen. And you know, it leads to their loss in Infinity War. The Avengers are divided when this film ends. This film is tackling so much, and this is why it's such a great film, because it makes you think. You know, everyone talks about, you know, are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man? They did such a great job of helping you understand both sides, and I was like, oh, Cap's got a point here, oh, wait, Tony's got a point here, oh, wait, Cap's got a point here, and just every character, you hear them in the beginning when they're first given the Sokovia Accords, and they're just talking through it, whether they should do it or not, and you hear everyone's viewpoints, and everyone throughout the film is just saying so many, like, great things. I'm like, oh, I agree with this, but I also agree with that, and I'm just like, oh gosh, who's right, who's wrong in this situation? And I really, like I said, I do want to discuss this film more on my channel. I eventually do want to have a discussion with my friends and kind of bring in more people to discuss this film. I'm not really on either team. I'm not Team Cap or Team Iron Man, because I think they both have good points. I'd really have to think it through and kind of discuss it. I think a lot of wisdom can be gained from hearing different perspectives and people's different beliefs, and I just love how they dive into that in this film. You hear different perspectives, and you know where these characters are coming from. You've seen what they've gone through, and how I just think it's so interesting how we all have different perspectives and different beliefs and different viewpoints on everything, and it's influenced by how we grew up and a bunch of different other factors in our lives that determine our worldview and why we believe, what we think is right and what we think is wrong. I love how this film dives into that, and that's why I want to discuss this film with more people, because I think a lot of wisdom is gained from hearing different perspectives, and I think you can learn a lot from something like that. And that's what they do in this film. You learn from different people's perspectives. In the opening, when they're first given the Sokovia Accords and they're all talking about why they don't want to or want to sign it, I'm like in my notes, I'm just like, I want to write down all of this, but it just became too much. And like I said, there's so much in this film to pull out and discuss that I just can't do it all in one video. And the Avengers being divided come the end of the film, and how it leads into Infinity War, and why they lose in that film, because they are divided. Cap says at the end of this film, he sends Tony a note, and he's like, if you ever need me, call me. If the world needs us, we need to be united, we need to be together, we need to work together. And when the world needed them to work together, they didn't. You know, when Infinity War starts and Thanos' Black Order first arrives on Earth, Tony does not call in the rest of the Avengers. He only is working with the people who are around him at the time, you know, Doctor Strange and Peter Parker and Bruce Banner. He's like, doesn't call in Cap or the other Avengers that he knows. He's determined to try and figure it out on his own, it seems. And I think that's why they lose in Infinity War, because they are divided and they're not united. And it reminds me of what they said in Avengers Age of Ultron when, you know, Tony says, what happens if another alien invasion happens, you know, teasing Thanos, obviously, and he's like, and Captain America's like, well, then we'll fight them together. And that's why they lose in Infinity War. They are not together, they're not united, they're not coming together and discussing a plan and how they're gonna beat Thanos, and I think that's why they lose. Because you see them come together again in Endgame and put their differences aside, and because of that, they are able to beat Thanos and bring everyone back. They're able to save the world. It really reminds me of some scripture, Matthew 12:25. But Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he's divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? Just to give some context here, Jesus has just casted out a demon from somebody, and the Pharisees are like, he's casting out demons by the power of Satan. And Jesus is illustrating and trying to tell them, Like, why would Satan do that? If Satan does that, he's working against himself. And, you know, he says that famous quote, "A house divided against itself cannot stand," which, you know, of course, President Abraham Lincoln famously quoted in one of his famous speeches. And that's where the Avengers are. They are a house divided against themselves. They're working against each other, and as a result, they cannot stand. They can't work together and be united. They're going to fall, and that's why kind of the world falls apart in Infinity War when Thanos snaps away half of all life in the universe. But once they are united and come back together, they are able to save the day and be the proper protectors of the world they need to be. This film just does such a great job at handling conflict, and I love how it's a Captain America story, but like as we all joke, you know, it's Avengers 2.5, but I love that it's Avengers 2.5. I thought that was such a wise, amazing storytelling decision. This is one of those films that just makes me really appreciate the Infinity Saga and just realize how such a masterpiece it is and how well it's crafted and just how such a great story the Infinity Saga is. And it makes me kind of sad that the Multiverse Saga, the current saga we're in the MCU, is not really the same and doing the same thing. Like I said, I can go on and on about this film, but I think I need to stop. I think this video is already getting to be a bit long, so I'm just gonna discuss a couple more things that I love about this film and then wrap this up. Like I always say in almost all my MCU film reviews, I love the little comic book references and everything in the film. Like I love Sam Wilson or Falcon's little Red Wing, that little device that detaches from his wing pack, and it's like a camera or something. And if you don't know, Red Wing is a reference to, in the classic Marvel comics, when Falcon had an actual pet falcon named Red Wing. And I love in the beginning when they're fighting Brock Rumlow, who becomes his famous comic book counterpart in Crossbones, and he has the skull mask and all that. I just love those little comic book references and Easter eggs and all that. Like I said earlier, this film does a great job of introducing Black Panther and Spider-Man and setting up their films in the future of the MCU. Chadwick Boseman, it's so sad what happened to him, but he does such a great job as T'Challa, as Black Panther, and Tom Holland does such a great job as Peter Parker, as Spider-Man. Marvel just has such a knack for putting great casts together and casting these characters very, very well, and getting actors who fit these characters and can play these characters properly and do justice to them. I really don't have much to complain about this film. Like I said, it's like a 9 or maybe even a 10 out of 10 for me. The only thing that I would have to maybe complain a little bit about is when they bring in Hawkeye and Ant-Man to fight on Captain America's team right before the airport fight. It's fun to have two of my favorite MCU characters in Ant-Man and Hawkeye there, but I don't know, it kind of feels like when they bring them in, like Hawkeye's retired, he's trying to be a family man, he's trying to get away from this life and take care of his family, but then he like gets brought back in, and they address this in the film when the heroes are like captured in the raft and Tony starts talking to them, but they don't really dive into why. And that's like, Hawkeye and Ant-Man are family people, they have families, and they get involved in this fight that could get them arrested and cause them to be fugitives from the law. And you know, with Ant-Man, that was the whole point of Ant-Man. He's trying to give up his criminal ways and not be imprisoned again so he can have a relationship with his daughter Cassie. But when they bring him in and Cap tells him, hey, you're probably going to be a fugitive if you join our fight, and he's like, yeah, what else is new, or something like that. And it's just like, wait, what? What about Cassie? So bringing in Hawkeye and Ant-Man and their involvement in the story is just a little bit iffy to me. It feels like it kind of goes against their characters and what they want and what's really important to them. But it's minor. Maybe they address it in future films. I obviously don't remember if they do, but we'll see. But Captain America Civil War, fantastic, fantastic film. I love watching this film. And with that, I think that's all I have to say about Civil War. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you enjoyed it, and leave comments down below. I would love to have a discussion with y'all in the comments and know y'all's thoughts on Captain America Civil War. I would love to have a discussion with y'all about this film and dive deeper into it. Click right over here to subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I would love and appreciate your support in helping me put more God-honoring Christian content out there in the world. And if you want to watch my previous MCU review, click right here to watch my review for Ant-Man. And right here's a playlist of all my MCU videos. Hopefully you can find another MCU-related video in there to enjoy, or if you're new here, you can catch up on all the MCU movies I've reviewed up to this point and continue with me on this journey to watch and review every MCU film. And with that, I hope y'all have a blessed one, guys. I'll see y'all in the next video.